The Culture Pop Podcast is brought to you by the law offices of Jacob Emrani.
Accident or injury, call Jacob Emrani. Call Jacob.
Hey, it's Mase. If you or a friend or loved one is injured in an accident, the first person you should call is my friend Jacob. When I did this, Jacob was great. He helped me by talking through the next steps, which really put my mind at ease. When you're injured in an accident, you got to have an expert. That's why you call Jacob, just like I did. Call Jacob, 844-24-JACOB. That's 844-24-JACOB, or visit calljacob.com.
Call Jacob.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Culture Pop Podcast. I'm Steve Mason along with Sue 𝐂𝐤𝐴𝐺. This is the show where we talk about everything going on in the world of pop culture. Great guest today. Corbin Bernsen will join us. He's a legend for his role in L.A. Law. His latest project is the miniseries Clipped, which is streaming on HULU. Sue, how you be? What's up?
How I be? I be good.
Good.
I actually had major breakthrough the other day, swimming in the open water. You know, I'm training for my second sprint triathlon.
Yes, that's right.
And actually had like a meditative moment swimming in the open water. It's like
Wow.
the closest I have been to just like I never stop.
Effortless.
Just effortless.
Yeah.
And I have a little mantra in my head. It's a counting thing where it's just 1, 2, 3, breathe. One. And I never, ever strayed from that. And it was unbelievable.
That's great.
And I beat my time. I swam with one of my training buddies. We swam there and back, which is 1,000 meters.
Mm-hmm.
And I beat my time going halfway from the race by a couple of minutes.
Nice.
And I didn't swim really fast. It was just smooth and easy.
Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but it is a record year for baby sharks. There are more have you seen these drone shots? There are baby sharks everywhere along the coast. I got to think you swam right by a baby shark at some point.
Well, maybe I did, but I have to tell you that ever since you've brought it up, that's all I think about when I go swimming. So I'm shocked that I'm not swimming faster. Anytime, because there's a lot of like brush, like at the, it's like gooey and there's a lot of like, what do you call it? It's not kelp. I don't know what it is. Algae and all that kind of crap in the water. So sometimes if I'm swimming, I'll go off course a little bit and I'll swim in more shallow water and I feel something. I'm like, oh no.
Right. Now here's the tip. I don't know if you know this or not, but the way to deal with this, if you do run into a shark during your swimming, you punch it in the nose.
Right.
So if you punch a shark really hard in the nose, it ruins its balance, its equilibrium, and it will roll over on his back.
Seriously.
So I think punching should be part of your training.
Well, I used to take boxing lessons, so I think I have that in my arsenal.
There you go. Well, I want to talk about a few things to start the show. One of them, and we've touched on this before, is SONY Pictures acquiring the Alamo Draft House. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was interesting. The SONY president of international distribution, Steven O'Neill, did a thing called Cine Europe and spoke over there. And he noted that SONY Pictures made a bold move by acquiring Alamo Draft House for $1.2 billion, and that SONY, are positioned to make some big bets on the future of our industry. He said, the exciting thing is, if anybody wants to doubt that we believe in our future, to invest in cinema is the biggest statement we could make. And we don't do it to make a statement. We do it to make money. So we're doing it because we believe in the industry. We trust the existing leadership and couldn't be more excited about it. Now, I think I completely get what he's saying. Mm-hmm. In other words, we all wonder about the future of movies. What are theaters going to be like? Are we still going to go to the movies in 20 years? All that stuff. SONY is betting yes, and it would not surprise me to see other theater chains acquired by studios. And I think this is encouraging. The one thing that SONY has said is that tickets are very expensive for movies, and that's one of the first things they may do is lower the ticket prices after this sales goes through.
Okay, well, that would make it a lot more appealing for people to go to the theater. So that's very smart.
Exactly. Now, do you think in 20 years we will go to a movie theater?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think movie theaters are going to go away. I just think that the experience of going to a theater is something that's in everybody.
Right.
You know, I mean, I may not go to the movies as much as I used to, but I still will go for certain films that I feel will not give me the experience it gives me in my living room.
See, I never get the experience. Like, for example, we talked about this, but Hitman, I went to a theater to see it, even though it was on Netflix, because I wanted to experience the movie theater. And that experience is different than just streaming something at home. So I hope Sony is right, and investing in the theater business is really smart right now, because my hope is that in 20 years and beyond, that we're going to still have movie theaters. I actually said to Juan, I'm like, yeah, so I'm 59 now. So when I'm 70, I'm going to be super bummed if there aren't movie theaters, because that's the kind of thing I would want to do when I'm 70 is go to see a movie. So I'm hoping theaters are around for my 70th birthday. You're saying you think they will be?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I look back on being a kid and going to drive-ins. Right?
Yeah, oh God, I love the drive-in.
And how much fun it was to do that. But you didn't have as many drive-ins as you had regular, you know, brick and mortar theaters.
Correct. Yeah.
You know? And when the drive-in kind of went away, I mean, there may be, I think there's a drive-in still here in LA,
There is one in
right?
Southern California, yeah.
Yeah, one.
One drive-in.
But as a kid, I mean, I never even thought, you know, are there never going to be drive-ins anymore? You know what I mean? It just happened. But it wasn't like, it was kind of a novelty to go to the drive-in. Right. You know, you didn't always go to a drive-in to go to a movie.
Sure.
You know? You went to sneak in with your friends, hide in the trunk, you know, smoke pot in the car. You know, it was just, that was the experience of that. So, you know, I don't know. I look at his gamble and I think, you know, it's like playing the stock market. You know, you're putting all your money, you know, and you know, you're
betting on theaters,
and you're betting on theaters. So, you know, I hope he's right. You know,
yeah,
but
me too.
But I think the key is lowering the prices, because it's crazy. It's gotten out of hand.
It is crazy. I mean, and I'm a member of AMC Stubbs Premiere or whatever the hell it is, so I get free movies. But if you just buy a ticket, it's like $18 now to go see a movie. It is too much. They need to lower the prices. They're pricing so many people, especially pricing families out. You know, they always do this with baseball. Well, a family of 4 goes to a baseball game and they each get a hot dog and all that, and it costs so much. How about going to a movie theater for a family? You go to see, I don't know, Despicable Me 4, which is coming up. Everybody gets a popcorn. Everybody gets a soda. Well, that's $100 plus.
Right.
For a trip to the movies with the kids. So I do think it's too expensive. All right. We've talked about Francis Ford Coppola investing $120 million in Megalopolis, which is his new movie. This is the way it's described. The character in Megalopolis, played by Adam Driver, with idealistic passion, Caesar Catalina, is a visionary genius intent on saving New York City by building a utopian future, dislodging the elite ruling class in the process. So that is what the movie is about. It cost $125 million for Francis Ford Coppola to make the movie. And it played at Cannes, and it got a mixed reaction. Some people thought it was unbelievably inventive and genius. Some people thought it was just batshit crazy. But Francis Ford Coppola has officially landed a deal with Lionsgate, and Megalopolis will now be released September the 27th by Lionsgate. Now, are you surprised that there's a distribution deal for this?
I'm not, because I think that someone like Francis Ford Coppola, he kind of gets grandfathered or great-grandfathered in because of his legendary status. So I'm not surprised. I mean, it got 51% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is, considered rotten, when you think about it.
It is rotten. It's considered
below,
rotten.
It's like below the Mendoza line when you think about it,
Yeah.
But I think because of who he is, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I will be one of the first people in line for this movie. I really want to see it. I want to experience it. I mean, however this movie happens to be, or however I take it or people take it, it's still likely the last film of one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. I would say probably top 5 filmmakers of all time: Francis Ford Coppola, Godfather, Godfather 2, The Conversation, Apocalypse Now. I mean, these are legendary movies that we quote and that we watch when they come up. I just think I want to see the last throes of a creative genius.
Sure.
Even if it's a really tough needle to thread. So I'm there.
Yeah. I mean, I think there'll be something in it that will be positive takeaway just because of his artistic sense,
Genius. Yes.
Yeah.
Genius.
Yeah. Genius.
I came across a list, and I sent you this, a list of the best political films of all time. And it's a political year. We don't talk a lot of, actually, we don't talk any politics on the show at all. Because, and by the way, that's a conscious choice. Because I just think this year, people need stuff that doesn't involve the election. Like on ESPN, we don't do any politics. On the Culture Pop podcast, I don't like doing politics. It occasionally comes up. But the best political films of all time certainly falls into a different category. And here are the top 10. And I don't know if you have any of these. Number 10 is A Face in the Crowd, which I do not know.
You don't know that?
No.
Oh my God, Steve. It is a must-see. I tell everybody to watch that movie. It is phenomenal, especially in light of what's going on right now.
Okay. All right. It's on my list.
Andy Griffith, never better. Unbelievable.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Number 9 is Shoah.
Yes,
which
I've seen
I
Shoah.
completely understand. Number 8 is Do the Right Thing, the Spike Lee movie. Number 7, Battleship Potemkin, which I think is the one where the baby carriage is coming down the steps and they're shooting. That one, I know I saw it in film school. Something called Triumph of the Will is Leni Riefenstahl. That's 1935.
I know the movie. I've never seen it.
Yeah, I've never seen it either. Number 5, Birth of a Nation, D.W. Griffith. That movie was from 1915. It's Ku Klux Klan is a really scary movie. Number 4 is All the President's Men.
Yep.
Which is legendary.
Classic, yeah.
Number 3 is Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying About and Love the Bomb. I think that's an unbelievable movie. The Manchurian Candidate, the original.
Oh, God. Scary.
The one
scary.
with, very scary.
Angela Lansbury.
Oh, Angela Lansbury. You know what's weird about that movie? Angela Lansbury plays Frank Sinatra's mom. And actually, I think she's like 3 years older than Sinatra. But she carries it off perfectly. Oh, she's so creepy.
Oh, God,
and Sinatra.
Lawrence,
and who's the other actor?
Lawrence Harvey.
Lawrence Harvey. Yeah, unbelievable.
God,
And
scary.
for them, the number 1 is The Battle of Algiers. It's a 1966 Algerian-Italian film directed by Guido Pontecorvo.
Never saw it.
Which I do not know, but that doesn't mean it doesn't belong on the list. So I said, let's do our top 5. So I'll do mine All the President's Men is on my list. I just think it's an amazing movie. Alan Pakula directed. William Goldman wrote just a perfect script based on the book written by Bernstein and Woodward and Bernstein. And Robert Redford, Dustin Hoffman, just terrific in it. The Smoking Man in the parking garage. You remember who it was?
Yeah, it was, what's his name? He always played Mark Twain. Hal Holbrook.
Hal Holbrook. There you go. Yeah, Hal Holbrook was the smoking guy. Right. He was Deep Throat. And of course, it won Best Picture. All the President's Men, absolutely on my list. Give me one of yours.
All right. That's on my list as well.
Okay.
The Manchurian Candidate is on my list.
Okay. Why? Now describe Manchurian Candidate. Why is it
Well, because it the way it was shot was it was black and white, and it was about how they did mind control with people,
Yes.
and just what was going on during that time, because it was like this was during the height of the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yes, that's correct.
So it was just, the time of it, and
the idea of a Russian sleeper cell guy.
Exactly. And just the acting was incredible, and it was just an incredible story, but it played kind of like a thriller.
Yeah. So you do have All the President's Men on your list?
I do.
I've got one that's not on yours.
Okay. How do you know?
Because I know.
Okay.
It's Election, which is directed by Alexander Payne, stars Matthew Broderick, and Reese Witherspoon is Tracy Flick, and it is about the girl who is the most desperate to be the class president. And I think it's just genius level stuff. It's based on Tom Perrotta wrote the book, and I've actually he wrote a follow-up to it. I've read the original book and the follow-up to it. He's a brilliant writer, and this is a fascinating story. It's like a microcosm of what politics actually are. So I love this movie. It's actually very funny. It's a dark comedy. If you've never seen it, the movie is Election. It's from 1999, and it's terrific.
Okay. A Face in the Crowd is another one.
Oh, it is.
And it's basically a story about this grifter who becomes very famous, and he becomes he becomes like I don't know if he becomes president, but he becomes like this leader, and he's like a really, really bad guy, but very, very charismatic.
So it's like,
it was like 1957. So when I think of this movie, it's hard not to think about Donald Trump.
That was Andy Griffith's film premiere, huh?
That was his premiere, and who else? Patricia Neal was in it, and
Walter Matthau.
And do you have the cast there? Because it was also
I do.
Someone else that
Lee Remick.
Lee Remick. Lee Remick was like 17, I think, when she did that.
Was she really? Oh, she's
yeah,
such a
and
good
it was her
actress.
first film. And it was just, he was just this horribly unlikable but charming character.
Right.
And there was a love interest with Patricia Neal. She actually created a monster. She was a producer, and she was the one who kind of snagged him. And then it just got really, really ugly. But it's just like I said, just based on everything that's going on now, it's a great movie in of itself.
Yeah.
But it has
especially
ties.
for now.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Also on my list, 2000 is the year. The Contender, which is written and directed by Rod Lurie. It stars Jeff Bridges, who plays the president. Joan Allen, he's trying to get her, I guess, what would that be? What's that term? Get her the vice presidency, and Congress just isn't sure about it. And I'll tell you, Jeff Bridges, it's one of my favorite roles. Talk about a charming guy. There's one thing in this movie that I love. He loves to order things from the White House kitchen. And he says, watch this. I can order anything and it will show up. And the one thing he talks about with Joan Allen's character is that the raisin cookies have these great big raisins. They're like grapes. And I just remember him telling that story. And of course, the other weird thing about this is, so I knew Rod Lurie for a long time. He was a film critic. And when I was doing the Snyder Show back in the 90s, Rod would come in and talk about current movies. And he would always say, I've got this screenplay that I'd love you to read. And I would always punt on it. I would always say, oh, yeah, I'd love to read it. And it never quite, it was The Contender.
Oh, my God.
He was one of those guys that was driving around town with a screenplay in his trunk,
Wow.
ready to pitch it anytime, anywhere. And sure enough, it became just a great, great movie. So The Contender is on my list.
Okay. Wag the Dog,
Also on my list.
directed by Barry Levinson.
Yep.
Also a story that imitated what was going on in the Clinton era.
Yep.
Story about a president who's preparing for re-election, and then a political spin doctor comes in, and they manufacture a fake war with Albania to distract the public from his impending sex scandal. And oh God, what a great
It's so
film.
good. Dustin Hoffman is so damn fun. He's doing like a variation of Robert Evans.
Yeah.
It's like a Robert Evans kind of character. By the way, this is interesting. So you mentioned the Clinton sex scandal. This actually, Clinton was involved in the Lewinskys. Okay, first, we bombed a pharmaceutical factory in Sudan. Okay? Then the sex scandal came out. So it was literally, the movie came out, and then exactly what was in the movie happened. It like predicted what would happen with Bill Clinton. It's a genius movie, and Robert Evans, the Robert Evans character, and I think it's based on Robert Evans, is just Dustin Hoffman just absolutely nails it. All right, my final movie is I don't think is an especially well known movie. It's from 1972. It's called The Candidate.
Oh yeah.
It stars Robert Redford. And Peter Boyle, the great Peter Boyle, with a great screenplay. It was nominated, Jeremy Larner, and it was directed by Michael Ritchie. And so Robert Redford is running for the Senate in California, I'm pretty sure. And he realizes he's very, very idealistic. And as the campaign goes along, he starts altering his positions, changing his views based on public opinion. He wins the race, and there is a great scene at the very end of the movie, spoiler alert, where he's sitting on a hotel bed, and he's won the Senate, and he just doesn't know who he is anymore because he's made so many compromises and so many promises and done so many things specifically to get elected that he's lost his sense of self. And I think probably a lot of politicians experience exactly that. So that's why I love that movie. And Robert Redford, never better. Have you seen that?
Yes, I have. And I remember, like, at the end, doesn't he say something like, he asks, like, how do I feel about this? What am I supposed to do now? And then
right, what am I supposed to do now?
And the person he was talking to just kind of like walked away, and he's like, I'm gonna.
Yeah, exactly. He was just dazed. Great movie. Hey, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please leave us a 5-star rating and a review. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe to the Culture Pop Podcast channel. We got shows coming out all the time. Here we go. Our guest today had his big break in 1986, landing the role of Arnie Becker on the legendary L.A. Law. He went on to star in the Major League movie franchise and films like Shattered, The Dentist, and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. His current project is Clipped, the HULU miniseries about Donald Sterling v. Stiviano, the L.A. Clippers, from our friend Ramona Shelburne. Corbin Bernsen joins us. Hey, Corbin, thanks very much for coming on, man. We really appreciate it.
Well, it's great to be here, wherever we are.
Where are you?
Wherever we are. I'm in upstate New York.
Oh, okay.
Valley.
Nice.
Yeah, very nice.
So,
we're under that heat dome, the heat dome that's going on.
Right. So how hot is it?
It's hot. I've been in hot, but it's this it's kind of this oppressive, humid and hot. But it's still beautiful out my window. So
I went to college upstate New York. I went to New Paltz.
Oh, you did? Okay. Well, you're in the zone here. We're all in the zone.
So we are, first of all, I'm a huge fan of yours from your LA Law days, and I want to talk about that. But let's talk about Clipped, which is your latest project.
Yeah.
So I kind of lived this story because I worked for ESPN. So I was around Donald Sterling. I was around Shelley Sterling, Doc Rivers, all those guys. What did you know about this story when you actually took on this role?
I knew because it precedes, I believe, let's call it the Harvey Weinstein. There's all these points where all this stuff keeps changing. I think Harvey Weinstein was a big one. Jeffrey Epstein was another one.
Sure.
It kind of precedes it a bit. It's really the first entry into the zone of this generation that I didn't know the detail that I know from Clipped. I'll put it like that. I mean, I only know what we all read and heard. But again, I've never been one big on life to just trust the story we're told, but what's really going on. But I knew and I sensed we're at a place where, because I saw it with my father, God bless him, and I mean that. And he meant well. He was a good meaning guy, but he'd do stuff that you just can't do today, But it wasn't with ill intention. And that was that sort of gray, funny area where, but you have to ask yourself what's in the heart and what's just not acceptable. Because the line of just acceptable keeps moving, right? Mm-hmm. What's in the heart is always the heart, kindness, goodness, compassion, all those things are in the heart. But the line of what's acceptable, what's right or wrong, that keeps moving. And I could see that a generation that my father was from, that they're going to get stuck, And so I have this talk with my wife often. I try, and I learned from my mother, God bless her, wonderful soap actress. I learned a lot about empathy. And that means not sympathy, not agreeing with, but trying to understand and being empathetic to another person's point of view or way of being. And I guess within that, I wasn't sure where the right or wrong was. That was a long answer to your thing. Again, I didn't have firsthand knowledge. I'm also a guy, it's like, well, I didn't see it. So I guess if enough people say it, maybe, but I didn't know where the line was.
Yeah.
Point. Obviously you're not going to be straight up racist and hanging black people. That's a clear line. I know that line. But I think Donald's thing is a little bit more complicated, I think Ed speaks to that a little bit. It's certainly to play him, you'd have to. I think you're a racist.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just watching this, I don't know the last time I wanted to reach into my television and strangle a character.
Right.
I mean, because I was very aware, like Steve, I'm a big sports fan. And I listened to the podcast and read Ramona's, articles that she wrote. So I knew about it, but to see it was so much more disturbing.
Right. But do you, I guess and this is why, I think everybody's thinking you're going to get a little basketball thing from the Clippers, and it's not that, not at all. In fact, was there like 2% basketball in the whole thing?
Very little.
Probably the least exciting part of the whole thing. It's not about that. It's not even about winning. It's not even about that season where so much was at stake. It is about what personally went on in that season. But, I guess I would ask you, we know what he did in our hearts comes under just not a nice, not a nice guy. It's not the nice guy, just like yuck, you don't say stuff like that. You don't do that. But do you think in his heart that he didn't really quite understand? He felt like he was good to black people. I mean, is that did he genuinely feel that, just didn't understand where the line was, I guess?
I think to a certain extent, he thought everything he was saying was okay.
Right.
I mean, that's the way it's portrayed. He's like, what's wrong? What did I do? What did I say? What?
Right. Well, I mean, look, I mean, you could go out and, kill somebody and go, what's wrong? They deserve to die, I just think it's an interesting study in who and what we are and what we, as we grow our humanity on this planet, we humans, as our humanity grows, please, with 10 steps back every day, it seems, that we are, that we can all understand we're just, my wife and I have a big talk about the whole gun thing, right? She's from England. She does not flat out get it at all. And I said, we're a 300-year-old country that people had guns 300 years ago to survive, get their food, protect themselves. And I said, you can't base on your country, not everybody who has a gun and has an American flag is voting for Trump. She's got this in her head. If you do this, you're that, and you're that, and you're that, and you're stuck in this box. And I said, you have to, again, have some empathy, understand that somebody who wants to have a gun feels just as strongly about having it as you them not having it.
Right, right.
And I think that's, I try to do that. Look, I have my own values, like a gun, abortion, and all those things. I have all my own values and they're there, but I always try to understand where the other person is coming from. I try to humanize the other person. And that's just me.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to ask you about the performances of Ed O'Neill and Jacki Weaver.
Right.
So I'm a huge fan of both. I was around Donald Sterling and they so nail it. Ed O'Neill nails the weirdness of Donald Sterling because he was an intensely weird guy. And Jacki Weaver has that perfect Shelley Sterling, I'm going to court kind of attitude. What was it like having Ed and Jacki as scene partners?
Well, I mean, great, because honestly, if you really look, there's a thing, there's one of these things that I saw somewhere online about the actor and the real person, even down to my character with playing, Pierce with I put the wig on, and as I had to explain to my wife, acted heavier than I was. But yet Ed has got just enough of that bite that goes right back to, the show,
Married with Children.
What?
Married with Children?
Married with Children.
Married with Children. It goes right back to that. I mean, I did a movie with Ed many years ago called Disorganized Crime, and it was it was the same thing. But he's got it. Now, I didn't know Jacki at all, but just the look similarity and what she's doing, there's just some of those scenes. She's just, everybody in it is so wonderful. I mean, she's great in these scenes where she's accepting it and then can't tolerate it. And you'll see coming up, I guess tonight's another episode, you start to see where it breaks and, the NBA forces upon Sterling, what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And her having to make these decisions. I mean, it's just, she's one of those actors, Ed, I knew that Ed was perfect. I didn't know enough about Jacki, but she's one of those actors who's so interesting and quirky and real that I think she is Shelley. I don't know Shelley Sterling. I don't know her. I mean, I assume she's like that. I'm buying into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Donald, we knew more about because you see it, you saw it, But again, I tell people, I did a show called The Cursed, and working with Emma Stone, you just, certain actors just bring such a, it's like playing baseball with the best of them. It just brings your level up. I'm sure musicians the same way. So it's extraordinary, and there's very little blur between. I didn't have to pretend he was Sterling. He was
nice. Yeah.
I kind of liken their relationship to a very disturbing Edith and Archie Bunker.
Yeah, it is. It is. But that's the beauty of it, because she does love him, right? She does love him. And it's so important to this story. If she just was reviled by what he did, and then he's just a terrible bad guy. But if you have a woman that you like and you care about as an audience, and she cares about the character that you're meant to despise, you've got to realize there must be something in there. There must be something worthwhile giving this guy, again, some empathy, not saying you're right, not saying sympathy, but just, it's just, I think she's so important, because if she just played it, or was it that she just despised the man, then you've got no movie. The beautiful thing of this is what we are as human beings. This is what we're going through, everything in our politics, everything. I think the movie has come out, or the series, or whatever they're called, at such an exquisite time of where we have to understand, it's Trump and Melania. It's the same, it's all the same stuff, and it's just a place in time where we're at. And I think it so encapsulates where we are as human beings now. What's acceptable? What's not acceptable? What about the people that love the people that you don't think are acceptable? It's, and we're sort of all redefining right and wrong, I suppose.
Yeah. So circle back around a clip, but I wanted to mention, I knew your mom a bit.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, Gene Cooper.
Lucky
I used
man.
to co-host a radio show with Tom Snyder at CBS, Television City. And your mom was shooting Young and the Restless at CBS. So if somebody canceled on us, we called Gene, and she was our just wonderful. What it was like having her come in as our emergency break glass guest, and she was always so gracious and always so entertaining.
Oh, cool.
I'm wondering what it was like growing up in a show business family. Was it just a given that you were going to follow in your mom's footsteps?
No, it wasn't a given. I at first, because my parents had their rough patches, and again, my father wasn't Donald Sterling in the racial way, but certainly in his gentlemanly way with women. I sort of grew up with that kind of relationship, and she did not play, Shelley Sterling. She
wasn't going to stand by for it.
She was not going to stand by. Gene Cooper. She ain't going to stand by.
Yeah.
I think she loved him to the extent that he was the father of her children, and they were there, but you weren't going to get a lot of kindness or support or backup there. So I saw, to answer your question, a business that's so screws with your head that I wanted nothing to do with it, until my father put me in a little small film called Free the Hard Way, one of the first black exploitation movies. And with Jim Brown, Fred Williamson, and Jim Kelly.
I knew Fred Williamson. Great
I had a little
guy.
part in it. And man, when I was done with that, I said, I got to make out with a girl. I got paid $900. I went, this for me. I don't care how bad it gets, how the family situation works out, but I want this. So I avoided it. And then once I decided, the only thing I told my mom is, hey, I think I want to do the acting thing. It was always around me. I'd put on plays in the backyard. She goes, you have my blessing, you can do whatever you want, but you don't have my blessing unless you go and train. And then she was sort of insistent, and that's why I went to UCLA, dropped everything I was doing, got my degree, got a master's degree in playwriting. That was all her teaching me, or telling me it was so important for the longevity of her career, which she had to train, not because the training's going to make you have a respect for what you do. It's like, the guys who last the longest in, I don't care if it's baseball, basketball, you hear the stories. They were out there at 7 years old after dinner shooting free throws. They had to be called in, There's not enough moonlight to do it in. And it's those are the people that put the hours in that have the longevity. Yeah, maybe their playing career is only X, and then they go on to being a coach or whatever, in the office or something. But longevity, I think it's all equal to the amount of time you put in up front in preparation. So they taught me that. My mom taught me that.
Yeah, yeah.
But at first, no, I wanted 0. Too many kooks came to our house.
So is your first big gig, was that Ryan's Hope?
Wouldn't call that a big gig. I tried out for a part. They didn't give it to me. They gave it to another guy, but they liked me, so they made me his best friend occasionally. That was an important gig for me because in New York, I was actually working as an actor, I think making $500 a show once a week. So I had a bit of money. I didn't have to go wait tables or do any of that. No, the first, I've got to officially say, and there were a lot of little gigs along the way, but the first, really the big break, the thing that changes everything is LA Law.
Oh, yeah.
It really does. Yeah. And, I mean, there were things. I was in an episode of Police Story and Policewoman as I worked my way up the Waltons. I have my little slew of, IMDb probably has them all. But the LA Law, that changed the landscape.
Did you go from, because you were not a star at the point of LA Law, but LA Law became the hottest show on TV. I mean, like, everybody was watching LA Law.
There's only 3 networks. It wasn't even Fox.
Now, did you all of a sudden start get recognized all over the place?
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, when you're on one of the only 3 networks on the big Thursday night of that after Cosby and Cheers and Family Ties or whatever it was that night, yeah. I mean, you're hot stuff from Hot Minute.
I want to ask you about Steven Bochco. When I was in high school, I watched Hill Street Blues. I was a huge Hill Street Blues fan. Such a revolutionary show, beautifully casted, got Daniel J. Travanti. What a performance. But it was an ensemble. And that really extended to L.A. Law. What made Steven Bochco such a genius? And frankly, where would television be without him?
Well, everybody likes to talk about how he pushed the board limits and all that stuff he did. His casting was always brilliant. You'd read it. I'm in the first year of the show. You'd read, because Becker, my character, Arnie Becker, always had the hot woman. And we're like, oh, he cast her. She's not so quote unquote hot. Steven had a different version of that. He had a real human version of, hot. I mean, if you even look at me, I mean, I was an okay looking guy, but I wasn't, Harry Hamlin, but Arnie Becker had faults, I had thinning hair. I had things so I think it's, I think I got cast in that in part because I wasn't the perfect guy, I've never been the perfect guy. But Steven understood one thing this is my take. He never told me this, although we had many, many conversations. He understood one thing that I've tried to put into anything I do, the writing or I think I've even talked about here, or certainly in my acting, is that, a guy walks down the street and trips over a crack in the sidewalk, his world falls apart. The guy behind him laughs hysterically. And I think that really, it's that fine line that we are living in this dramedy, we're all trying so hard, we're struggling through, and then you die. Ha-ha. There's a little ha-ha to all that. It's like, it's sometimes that can drive you nuts because you look at some of the stuff going on in the world and going like, what do you need Ukraine for? What do you need? Why are you, what are you, I look at the news, I think, are you out of your minds? You must be.
Yeah.
Because it's all just so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
It's kind of ridiculous. I think Steven understood that about human nature, that angst and all that stuff is just, it's got a brother right next door that's just humor, that's absurd. And I think that's the line that he pushed more. And then when you push that, sure, somebody's got to be naked, their butt's got to show, or you got to say some word to make it more reflective of today's world. But I think he pushed who we are, not saying you're the bad guy, you're the good guy, kind of what I'm saying, going right back to Donald Sterling.
Right.
I think Sterling must have been an exact kind of character he would love. Now like Donald Sterling, but loved the character of
to
Donald
write him and to
write
cast him
because
and all that
that's
stuff.
the kind of guy he wrote about.
Yeah.
And he would make sure we saw the side that makes you not so sure you hate him as much as you think you do.
Yeah.
Right.
I also think it was one of those shows that really influenced law, you know?
Well,
I mean,
huge.
huge. I mean, I was reading something and there was a quote that said, this guy said, as a top New York litigator and law journal editor told the New York Times, he was a law journal, told the New York Times, this was 1988, he said, any lawyer who doesn't watch LA Law the night before he's going on trial is a fool.
Probably. It's a good little warm-up session. Yeah. You know, I to this day, I now, I think when you know you're getting old, you're meeting people who are now retiring, said they went to law because of LA Law. I think you went into law, you've done your whole career, and now you're retiring. Man, I must be old. But I meet people every day that, you know, say they went into law because of it. And I don't, you know, the humorous thing always used to be because, you know, the cars we drove and the suits we wore and the inner office play and all that, which would, I mean, talk about acceptable, or Donald Sterling, Arnold Becker. I mean, you couldn't do it without addressing that stuff today.
Right,
you know?
right.
Sure.
So again, talking about the, you know, the end zones where the keep moving, you know, the goal line keeps moving.
Yes.
Yeah, it's hugely been influential. Yeah, it's never really gotten me out of a jam or anything. No cop. You got to be a cop to get out of a jam. I think, I think, Sipowicz would probably get us. Dennis Franz could probably get off a traffic.
Sure.
Right. You didn't have your
By
Ernie
the way,
Becker.
all these guys who pull you over now, they're like 23. So
You didn't have your
I
Ernie
know.
Becker business card.
no, I didn't have my Ernie Becker business card. On that play though, I will tell you, in the day though, you'd meet somebody from the CHP, California Highway Patrol, and they'd give you a thing. I had a guy recently at something. He gave me his shield, or another version of his shield. He said, if you're ever in Minnesota, this will get you out of trouble. I go, okay, I'll hold this one from Minnesota.
Yeah. Whenever you're there in Minneapolis.
Yeah. But no, it never got me off, never got me off, and never got me in trouble because, the wives and the things of,
Oh, sure. You did 3 major league movies.
Yes.
And, I work for ESPN. When we talk about best sports movies, Major League is always on the list.
Right.
When you were making that movie, did you have some sense that it was going to become the classic that it is?
I don't know if you know it's going to become the classic. I don't know if you know that stuff when you're in the middle of those things. I knew that the script was good. I build a lot. I'm a carpenter, and you can look at a set of plans and you go, oh, this, it's all about execution. But you can look at a team. You have 5 guys on the floor. On paper, it looks great. And then it comes down to how they plan. So I knew that it had the potential to be really good. It was, as I tell people, David Ward, who wrote it, who wrote The Sting, it is anybody who wants to write screenplays should probably read that, because what exactly should happen at page 27 happens at 27. What exactly happens for a classic movie, you really look at it, it's a, leaps are made in it. Like, we set it up as the problem, then they do this, then there's another problem, then that gets fixed like this, and then you got the big problem. It's all the classic points are right there. And by the way, we go from a team of nothing to winning by a newspaper spinning, like top ahead, in the series 3-2. But he, again, I was fortunate to work with somebody who just understands character, as well as story. Steven and David share that. David Ward, who wrote it, share that thing. They understand both story and character. And, it's when you can do those two things, that you get magic.
I watched it last night, and the last time I saw it was 34 years ago when it came out. And now that there have been so many other shows and sports type of series, it really felt like Ted Lasso, kind of. It was this group of misfits.
Right.
And the reversal, it had an owner who was anti-team as opposed to loving the team. But I look at some of the characters like the Pedro Serrano, and then I look at Danny Rojas. I mean, there was, and it makes me think, did the Ted Lasso guys, did they watch Major League? Because there was a lot of similarities that I thought.
Probably. I mean, if you've written and again, you say one of the best sports movies. So what is a sports movie? Is it really, is Clipped a sports movie? Well, yeah, I guess it falls under that, but a sports movie to me is a sports story, is really about those essential elements of, a group of characters, which happens, in every clubhouse, every basketball team, that happens. This guy, that guy, this guy, and this guy. And the big question becomes, and as we know, we see it, can they all play together? Can they come together? And then you have that universal thing that makes the movie bigger than a sports movie is, can we work together to achieve something, which, the world is asking itself right now. And so, yes, it's a sports movie in that it takes place in and around the sports world. But ultimately, again, I go back to it. I try to do all things. This is the way I approach stuff. Is it a human story? Where's the human story in there? And you have these very distinct characters. You got, Roger Dorn. You got the goody good, you got the bad boy with Charlie Sheen, and you got the Tom Berenger's character, and Dennis Haysbert, sort of a freak, and you got the old guy. Can we all work together to achieve a common goal? And that's a universal story. But the best place to tell that kind of story is tell them in war movies and in war stories, and I think sports stories. Where you get
that's actually interesting.
Can we work together as a team to the hill?
Now, did you get good at baseball for that movie?
I was pretty good. I was good enough that, I played from Little League. My father was the president. Not that makes any difference of our Little League. But I played Little League, Pony League, Babe Ruth, high school. And I'll tell you where it all stopped was, so I was pretty much a sports guy all the way through high school. And this is like, I graduated in 72. So 68, 69, 70, 71, and all in there. And I'm like, I had a coach. Our thing was you had to cut your hair. There's no hair over the ears. There's none of that stuff. And I'm going, this is all during the groovy 60s, right? And all my friends are off like smoking weed and having fun and having sex, and girls are attracted to them because they got long hair and beards or whatever they had. And I'm still sticking in there with the, trying to be the baseball player. I had all the desires of all that stuff, but I had to be that. So long story short, at the end of my senior year, I went off to Europe, grew my hair long, started to have some fun, came back and went to Humboldt State College, and they had an indoor, because it rained so much up there in Northern California, they had an indoor field, kind of field house, but it was all dirt, there's no grass. And I said, I thought certainly I should be able to play, I wanted to play baseball, more baseball. And I went in and met the coach. I thought, surely, who comes to Humboldt to play baseball? They got to let me in. It's not like a big recruit. And he goes, yeah, we'll have you, but the first thing that's going to go is that hair. And we're like, bye.
Yeah,
Baseball's
you were not going to give up the hair.
Like, I am not giving up the hair, man. I gave up the hair way too. I'm up in Hippieville. I am not cutting up the hair. No, I'm done. And I knew I was never going to be big enough or good enough, for it. So, I gave it up. But I was pretty good. I was, they asked me straight up because a lot of the other guys had to go try out. They knew Charlie could throw. Charlie's a good pitcher. He's good. He's a good athlete.
They were saying that he threw like 88 miles per hour.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what they say online.
Oh, look at the look on your face. Probably not something shy of 88.
Like how fast do you think?
88, that's getting up the.
I mean, that's like that could be pros, to
Yeah, if you have the control, but he might. I mean, he might have tossed a rock 88 once. I mean, fine. Who knows with Charlie? Anything can happen.
Yeah, I guess anything is possible with him, right?
Anything is possible with Charlie Sheen. I do know that he was a really good pitcher.
Oh, he's got. I've read that he's got a batting cage in his backyard. That he's actually really.
He's a sports guy. Even through their wackiness, it probably got him in trouble. Sports.
Yeah, right. So I want to ask one last thing. I want to ask about your movie Rust.
Yes.
It came out in 2010. You wrote, directed, and starred.
Right.
It was a personal, spiritual journey after your dad passed away.
Right.
And you said in an interview, you asked the question as you were holding a bag of ashes. You said, where is he? Heaven, hell? Is there a heaven and a hell? Is there a God? All these things you think about. I was sitting there with the bag of ashes wondering if he was somewhere, if he was nowhere.
Right.
So tell me about that moment, and through making the film, did you reach some sort of personal resolution about it?
No resolution. I don't have, I should pre-qualify this answer. I don't really have resolutions in life. And I had a therapist once who also said, we deserve nothing. Don't go into anything. You don't deserve anything in this life. Just do your life, and what will come will come. Look, I have resolutions to try to do better and do things, lose weight like anybody else, But what happened was I was in my 50s. And at that point where I've been married to a wonderful woman for 36 years, still married, wonderful.
Congratulations. Yeah.
But I was in the middle of it, and you are starting to feel that thing of okay, what's this next little bit coming up? And it's the typical place in the midlife crisis where a lot of guys bolt, go off and, buy the red Ferrari and leave their families. And I guess satisfy that urge to just do it, the God-given thing is make more people,
right.
Which is a very natural kind of thing. And again, my empathy toward cheaters is I get it. Men naturally just are there to go out and populate. I got in so much trouble saying that once in a Rolling Stone article that, that's men's natural instinct is to seed, and
yes.
I stand by it. It's kind of true.
I actually think you're right.
Yeah, that's kind of an instinctual. And then we become human and understand the other parts of it, and and try to modify our behavior to make sure people we're with aren't hurt.
Right. Hard for a woman on the other end of it to just say, "Oh yeah, that's what men do."
Yeah, right. Yeah. You're doing that. But so I was into that, but I didn't want to do the red. I wanted to write a story about. I wanted to start making films of my own, and I didn't want to do the red Ferrari story. I didn't want to do that story about going off and young girls. I said, so who else leaves their love of their life to try something new? And I thought, all right, preachers or pastors. I didn't really define a path. All I knew is a collar meant religion to me. And even though I'm not an idiot about religion, I just didn't have any specific this religion, that religion. And I thought it'd be interesting for a man who's given his life to God, given up a lot in his past. He could have been a huge athlete, this guy, my character, and gave it all up to go after his mother died, pursue his relationship with God. And when he wakes up one day and the world gone crazy and says, look, I'm asking you questions. You're not talking to me. I'm not talking to you. I'm sitting here. I'm getting nothing back. Maybe we should take some time apart. And that's what he does until he goes back to this small town and solves a terrible tragedy that's gone on. And in that finds his relationship back with God, if you will. Now, I didn't know it. I got a call from SONY Pictures. And they had a faith division called Affirm. They said, Corbin Bernsen, didn't know you were a Christian filmmaker. The article had gotten out in the Hollywood Reporter because I went to a small town, raised all the money in the town, and all the people in the movie are real people from the town. So it has some unique thing. And they said, Corbin, you're a Christian filmmaker. I went, yeah. Yes, I am. Sure. You're going to distribute this movie? Because I had no idea what I was going to do. All I had is this money, and I was going to make a movie for this town, and I didn't know what we were going to do. And I, at that point, just opened, because I was sitting with my dad's ashes before that. I took them up there. They actually show them being sprinkled at one point in a documentary I did. But, you know, you look and you go, that's my dad. He's in a baggie right here of ashes. And how did we get from president of the Little League, guy's not so good to my mother, took me to see the Beatles at the Hollywood Bowl.
Wow.
You know, how do I justify that with this bag of ashes? What is that link? You know, there's something in there that I haven't yet had to contemplate in this life. I know we die. I'm not an idiot, but wow, that's a long way from me at the Hollywood Bowl with him seeing the beat, you know, and one of the coolest things he ever did for me, by the way.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Boy.
And so it sent me down this journey. So I combined that with this, we're making a movie. And I will tell you everything else we did in that film. I mean, I need a house to burn down. Okay. Which house do you want? We have 7 of them. It turned out we burned down the most incredible story. And I just very quickly will share this with you on that movie. I was told early on, there was a pedophile who had been going across Canada, taking young men, abusing them, dumping them. I don't think he ever killed them, but he brutalized them and let them go. And they could see he was traveling across Canada. And the guy who helped me put the film together there in this little town showed me a house. He goes, that guy, he didn't show me a house. He said, that guy was actually caught in our town. And that was the end of the story. I knew. And so I'm looking for these 7 houses, and I picked this house. He goes, oh, that's an interesting house, because that's the one where the kid was. That was the last kid that they found. You've picked that house. And we're like, okay. And I just kept looking up, saying, just keep guiding me. I'm doing something good here. And everybody wanted to see it burn down. We get to the night of shooting, and there's all these kids around, want to see how shooting's done. And I'm introduced to this one kid who says, oh, this is so cool. You're doing this. And I said, okay, well, you're interested in film? Come stand next to me and watch it. And somebody turned to me, he goes, you know who that kid is? That's the kid who was in the house, the last kid.
Wow.
And so he came to watch it burn down. And that feeling you got, and everything that happened was this. Really, I, at that point, learned what it is to let go and go, faith. I put my faith in, I don't want to say you, because it sounds like, God is a thing. It's just, I put my faith in it and open to it and live in the present and find out what's going to come and be. And I will tell you what we call miracles during that movie. Minus 40 degrees up there in the middle of nowhere, Canada, making this movie with people who've never acted before. There's one scene, it's a most beautiful thing. I'm sitting in an intersection, which I thought, okay, that's metaphoric. That's great. I'm sitting in an intersection, and it was like fresh snow. So I got out to the middle, camera's way back up here, looking down at me in the middle of the intersection while I got to make a choice in my life, my character. And I thought, metaphoric, great. And all of a sudden, I said, stop traffic so the snow can fill my footprints in. And all of a sudden, I see cars coming. You go, stop, don't let them come. And the car just, right on through. Another car came right on through. And I said, okay, it's screwed up. We can't do anything. They said, we're rolling. And if you look at the film, it's actually, I'm standing in the middle of a cross.
Wow.
And it was just extraordinary.
Wow.
Just extraordinary.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. How perfect.
I want to finish with one last thing. So I don't know if you know this or not, but again, Ramona Shelburne, who created the podcast that led to Clipped, told me this last week that Donald Sterling and his wife, Shelley, still live together. Does that surprise you?
No. They love each other. Love is funny, man. A friend of mine just told me the other day his wife is cheating on him, and, he's distraught, and it's been going on for 3 years. And I said, do you love her? He goes, yeah. So stay with that. Wherever it takes you, stay with that,
Yeah.
I said, you may not end up liking her. My mother taught me one beautiful thing in life. She said to us as children, as her children, I will love you. I'm your mother. I'll always love you, but I don't have to like you. And I look at that with all people. I love people. I don't have to like everybody. I kind of love everybody.
Yeah. Well, listen, this has been fantastic, man.
Thank you.
Talking to you. The show is clipped. It is now streaming on Hulu. It's fantastic. Corbin, it's great getting to know you a little bit. We appreciate you coming on, and whatever the next thing is, we'd love to have you back.
Hey, I love talking to you guys. That was really fun. I don't talk a lot these days, but when I do, we try to have some fun.
That's great, man.
I'm going to be 70 in September. There's another whole point of view coming up,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm writing about right now. 2 guys went to Woodstock and never left. That's
wow. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
But there's a lot to explore. So anytime.
Well, thanks, man. Thanks.
Thank you.
There you go. Corbin Bernsen, who LA law, hotshot attorney, LA law, became a sensation overnight, awards and all that kind of stuff. And great and clipped, which is a terrific miniseries. Congrats, as always, to Ramona Shelburne on putting the whole thing together. Now, you just told me that when we did our 5 favorite political movies, that I did not ask you for your number 5. So
you cut me off.
I apologize.
I know.
It's all on me. It's terrible on me.
It's okay. It's okay.
So what is number 5?
The Parallax View. Do you know this movie? It was 1974 with Warren Beatty.
I know it, but I have never seen it.
Oh God! Talk about a thriller. This film, it's about a senator and who's a presidential candidate is assassinated, and there's all these witnesses that are being killed off, and Warren Beatty is a journalist, and he goes undercover to investigate what's going on. So while he's doing that, it's a company called Parallax. It's like the Parallax company,
right?
And they get wind that he's undercover. They know that he's a spy, basically.
Okay.
And he ends up I guess the lead guy who's following him kills him. He kills the guy, and then at the end, when he's searching for, he sees like the real killer, and he's searching for the guy, and he's on the trail for him. They think, the police that are investigating it think that it's Warren Beatty who's the assassin, and they end up killing him.
Oh, God.
So it was really just action-packed, and Warren Beatty's just so great in it. Paul Prentice was in it. It was great.
William Daniels was in it.
William Daniels.
William Daniels, what is he most famous for?
The Graduate?
The Graduate. What did he recommend that he invest in?
Plastics.
Plastics, exactly. He was also, by the way, the voice of the car in Knight Rider.
Right.
But I think he'd rather be known for The Graduate. All right, there you have it. There is today's Culture Pop Podcast. Hey, thanks a lot for listening. Thanks a lot for watching. Sue, it is great seeing you. And we will see everybody next time on the Culture Pop Podcast.